They want to take a job as a congressional aide, but a think tank is offering them $5,000 more wow.
The poor year. First year out of college is your poor year.
You're listening to Work in Progress, a podcast that helps you understand and navigate the world of work. Work in Progress is a podcast that belongs to the Virginia Audio Collective. Tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on the UVA Career Center website. For more resources, follow the UVA Career Center on Facebook and Instagram. I'm your host, Jessie, and I'm a career peer educator and a UVA student.
And I'm your host, Kate, and I'm a career counselor at the UVA Career Center. This week on Work in Progress, we talk about money. Cha-ching! Do we have a cash register? Do you talk with your friends about money?
Not really. It's uncomfortable to bring it up. Sometimes I will if, we're going out to eat and I'm like, I can't do that. But it's never like, oh, how much do you spend a week? Or, budgeting questions, I feel like it's taboo.
This is pretty much, the least money you're ever going to have in your life, right?
Yeah.
What are the things that right now cost the most for you?
I pay for my, electricity and insurance, so, utilities are my biggest expense. And then aside from that, food is the next biggest thing. But when I say food, that's on me.
Like snacks?
Yeah, I'll be you know what I need right now after a horrific exam? To spend $10 on, a Ben & Jerry's pint at CVS on the corner. Because everything's ridiculously overpriced.
That's a lot to pay for ice cream.
It's absurd. But when you're in that state of mind, it's just give me that Ben & Jerry's pint immediately. Also emergency expenses. I got a flat tire last week.
Like Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, big emergencies. But, I got a flat tire, and I was like, oh, crap. I hope it's not $200. Luckily, it wasn't.
Having
but
a car.
Yeah, even just doing, an oil change. It's only, $20, but it's still, that's 2 Ben & Jerry's pints. Just thinking about it.
Tragic.
In that way. So yeah.
They're all fuel related.
Yes.
I feel like it's different once people start looking at full-time jobs. I think a lot of students have a hard time just doing something different from their friends and just owning that. I mean, it becomes really different when you start to look at salaries across different industries and what the perks are. Even if you're in the same major and you grew up in the same hometown and you're both here at UVA, you could make really different choices that have different financial implications. And I think over the time I've worked here, I've talked to a lot more students who are a lot more stressed about money lately.
Yeah. I had this conversation last week. If worse came to worse and something happened, my mom or my dad could support me. But thinking about the amount of students, that is not their reality. And I'm still stressed. Are you kidding me? But I think it really speaks to how this is something that's on everyone's mind to some capacity.
So we have some case studies to go over having to do with all sorts of topics related to how are you going to pay for that and what's somebody going to pay you so that you can go into a career that you're interested in or even just test out a career that you're interested in.
Okay.
All right. The first one's related to internships.
All right. Taylor is a first-year student at UVA. They've been offered an unpaid internship at the American History Museum at the Smithsonian. However, they could also return to their summer job from high school, lifeguarding at a local pool. So what should they consider in making this decision?
This is a huge topic, I think, for students who are looking at the arts or anything related to nonprofit, public administration, those sorts of things. And I did museum internships even when I was in college. So,
ooh,
definitely, yeah.
First-hand experience. You're Taylor.
No Smithsonian, though.
Oh.
This Taylor's great. Over the time I've been at the Career Center, I've definitely seen unpaid internships decrease, which I'm really psyched about. I'm a big proponent of paying people for their work, particularly creative people, because they're doing a lot of work behind the scenes. I think it's definitely something that you should only see, I hope, in nonprofits, the unpaid internship. And so I think one of the things to weigh in making this decision is what skills will you develop and what type of network will you have access to in this experience that would have some sort of value to you that's not financial. Some other values might be access to mentorship, notoriety, and having something that was really well known on your resume, which the Smithsonian is much more well known than the museums that I, though they were cool, worked for in college. Also, since we have already done an episode about graduate school, go check it out. It could be something to think about in terms of boosting a graduate school application, or if you know already that some of the full-time jobs you're going to be looking for require you to have a certain number of years or at least months of experience in a certain space. If the only thing that you can find is unpaid, then again, this might be something to try to weigh.
Yeah, I feel like the values piece gets lost on a lot of people. Oh, it's this really great opportunity, so I'd be stupid not to do it without considering their own mental health or well-being. I feel like that's a conversation I've had with a lot of people, more particularly focused towards finance jobs, but I think it's applicable to any industry. Because even nonprofit and like grassroots advocacy, it's crazy hours, and you don't get paid a lot. I could talk for hours about like fair compensation and what that looks like, but I do think it's something to consider of like, will I be happy?
The other thing I think about here is that this student's a first year.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're still trying to build yourself and build your experience, if you can afford it and if it feels ethical to you that this organization's offering an unpaid internship, you really can't ask someone as easily to work full-time hours at an unpaid role, which means you could still perhaps take the lifeguarding job and maybe just ask about adjusting hours, things like that. And so one thing I would say is look for a middle ground. See if there's a compromise, if there's a way for you to meet two goals at once.
One thing I think about, too, since it's a first-year student, I remember my first year, I was like, I really don't want to go somewhere and have it unpaid and be super stressed. Like, I'm stressed about college. I've been here 4 months and I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I couldn't even fathom, like, going to D.C. and finding housing and doing the thing. The appointment was pretty much me asking permission. Can I stay home for a summer and do a paid and unpaid position? Is that allowed? And it was, obviously, the answer was yes.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
The only other thing I can think of to mention is it might be worth thinking about getting academic credit for your internship. Some internships will actually require you to get academic credit, which is a whole thing, but you might run across that. And there are some departments that have internship credits that count toward your major. Or if you're just trying to accumulate credits in general, we do have some options through the Career Center where you can get 1 credit and take professional development. And so feel free to come by the Career Center if you have questions about it.
So one question we get a lot in drop-ins, too, is what funding opportunities are there specifically for UVA students? 2 things come to mind, one of which is the Parents Fund.
Yeah, the Parents Fund internship grant is something that we offer through the Career Center. And so we offer somewhere around $3,000 to, just depending on the year, between 16 and 25 students who are doing internships that are unpaid, that they've already gotten into, that are connected to public service in some way, or some to sustainability. And so that's definitely something to look into. Look on the Career Center website for more information. That's the Parents Fund internship grant. We also have a scholarship in our office that is completely need-based that you can apply for. We also have a list of other funding opportunities that you can apply for that are across the university. And so there are a few scholarships and things like that, although if I could have one wish in my job, it would be that we had more internship funding for the arts. Just putting that out there. World.
Thank you.
Donors. All right. The next case study, what about people who are looking for a job?
So I've news for you. People are looking for jobs. Believe it or not.
That is literally why I have a job.
Yeah. And Jamie is one of those people. So Jamie is trying to decide between one job offer in New York City and one job offer in their hometown of Richmond, Virginia. The job offer in New York City has a higher salary, but Jamie's parents have offered to let them live at home for a couple of years for free. What do they do?
People like living at home now, right? I did not.
I don't know about all that.
Never wanted to live at home. It is more common for people to live at home with family. We've got some good data on that. So I think there are a couple of different things to consider. One, do you like your parents? Do you like your family? It might actually feel very comfortable for some people to live in a comfortable environment while they're doing something new and uncomfortable, which is working a full-time job. That could be a little bit intimidating. And so if those comforts are there, and if that's also going to be financially more stable for you, go for it. I think a lot of this just has to do with doing the math.
Run in the numbers.
Run in the numbers to see, what is the actual cost of living in each of these places? And then going back to the values, which of the opportunities is really, really right for you? It's really helpful to be able to look at what are all the different things that you're going to have to pay for once you're more independent after college. So things like taxes, paying for food, not just Ben and Jerry's, paying for any trips you might want to take. So if you're in New York and your family is in Virginia, then potentially you're going to want to come back and see them or your friends or come to, what's it called, YAR?
YAR, Young Alumni Reunion.
YAR. Paying for student loans, covering transportation. Do you need a car where you're going to be? Those are all really, really major expenses to actually go ahead and start calculating. And I would recommend using a cost of living calculator online. We also have a budget worksheet in the Who's Career Guide that goes through many, many, many different criteria that you might need to consider when calculating on a budget. And so I think digging into the details a little bit can be helpful in these moments, and it kind of grounds you in reality instead of just being worried, which I think is what happens when anybody gives you a job offer, is you just kind of freak out a little bit. I think it's also worth pointing out that for some folks, they might be contributing money back to their family. And so if it's going to help you be able to save money for others or younger sibling who's maybe going to college or something like that, all of these things have to be put into a giant math problem. It's just arithmetic. You can do it.
Yeah. Also, too, for a lot of these decisions, you aren't just alone. There are resources at the university that can help you with budgeting. So I know that Student Financial Services has peer advisors that specifically work with students across the board, internships, looking for a job, salary negotiation.
Something else you can do if you're thinking about moving to another city would be to reach out to people in the UVA clubs. UVA clubs are alumni clubs, and if you just Google UVA Club Los Angeles or UVA Club New York City, and so reaching out to those folks can be helpful. Most of them also have websites that have relocation information and things to think about for the economy of that particular city. Our Virginia Alumni Mentoring Platform is also searchable by location. Those are people who have already said that they really, really want to help UVA students, and so you know that they'll be a helpful captive audience. And just informational interviews in general. Ask other people who have made that move, going up for a weekend and visiting people to check things out just to get a better sense of what it might look like for you. You do have to balance your rational decision making with your intuitive or your feeling decision making. The last topic we have is around salary negotiation. Dun, dun, dun.
Uh-oh. So, Peyton has 2 job offers in Washington, D.C., and plans to move in with some friends who have a vacant room in their townhouse. They want to take a job as a congressional aide, but a think tank is offering them $5,000 more per year. Peyton is hesitant to ask the congressional office for more money since the job was very competitive, but they aren't sure they can afford to live with their friends at the current salary offer. What does Peyton do?
So this is my favorite thing / least favorite thing about drop-ins is when I see that a student is coming in to talk about a job offer. And I'm like, yay! I'm so excited to talk with them. I go out and get them, I bring them back, and they are stressed. They cannot even take a beat to celebrate. It's the first time anyone has ever offered you money for anything, and you have like nothing to base it on. And so the first thing I think about is like, take a moment and celebrate. Hey, Peyton, you just got 2 job offers. This is an amazing problem to have, but it's money and it's still going to stress people out. So let's assume that Peyton did all the right things all the time and did all of their research. You can look on Glassdoor, payscale.com, salary.com. For entry-level jobs, I also want to direct people to the Career Center website. We have a destinations report for each class, and you can see what some of the average salaries are for people coming out of college. So make sure you're not looking at average salaries for that industry in general, that you're looking for entry level coming out of a bachelor's degree program. There's also a huge difference between salary ranges in nonprofit fields, in education, versus something like a consulting or finance. And I think people intuitively know that, but they may not know the details until they start doing some research. It's really important for you to have basically 3 numbers in mind. One is your walkaway number. So if it's any lower than this number, I will not accept this job. And to know that ahead of time. You should not take a job if you can't make ends meet.
Yeah.
But because you may not know the salary until you actually are at the very, very end, which is also a recommendation, like don't bring up money until the end. Get the offer. And then you have power and you have leverage, just like Peyton. Peyton has 2 offers. So one thing you can also do is come back to your other employer and say, hey, I have this other job offer. I am more excited about yours, but they offered me $5,000 more. Is there any wiggle room? I like the term wiggle room. It sounds so friendly. But it's like, give me a little bit more. Yeah. Companies typically will budget for you to negotiate. And so they'll plan for people to be paid 10 to 15% more than what the advertised salary is. So you're not alone in negotiating for a slightly higher salary. You're not the only person. It's okay to advocate for yourself. If they come back and have a counter offer, then you can kind of take it from there. And these are really individualized conversations. And so feel free to come by the Career Center with your job offer questions. We will celebrate your job offer, and then we will help you figure out what's going to be the best thing for you. The other number that's very important is your dream number. So what would just make something completely not even worth negotiating if someone offered it to you. And then you need to have something in the middle. And so going ahead and knowing those numbers and writing them down before you start to go through this process is very important. But that also goes back to the math problem we talked about, where you need to also calculate in, what is involved in a salary offer. Is this a package where you're also getting benefits? So what is the cost of retirement? What other benefits are they offering you? Are there educational benefits? Is there a gym membership? Are there conference fees? Anything like that? Are those factors that have some sort of value for you that might help you make your decision?
So one thing I think is interesting is how your first job can have an impact on your future earnings, like throughout your career. How should students take that into account?
First of all, I would want to put that in the context of within an industry. And so that could be you get paid a lot more or you get paid significantly less. And those are going to be values-based decisions, of course. I do think salary history is something that you will start to see impacts you a lot more over the course of your life, but you may not think about it as much when you're entry level. So if you're filling out an application form and it says salary history, you're like, none.
None.
And honestly, I would encourage you not to put any information there or to put not applicable, or if you are allowed to type characters in, you can just say, I would accept a broad range or entry level based on my research. You can put a lot of different things into those fields just to skip to the next section. So try not to put a number on anything until that comes up later in the process. We do have some salary negotiation workshops that we do through the Career Center. Some are designed for women, but they're really for everyone, because there's some research out there about women negotiating salaries being different from men negotiating salaries. And so check out our Career Center calendar to see if there are any coming up, because we also can come do one for your student organization or for a particular group of people. We have some good resources on the Career Center website, I think, as well. There's so many lessons to be learned in the beginning of your career about the value of a higher salary versus other lifestyle pieces. And I've certainly seen people leave UVA, start at a higher salary, at a more competitive type of job, and then leave that type of job for something that was more flexible, that maybe didn't have as competitive a salary. I've also seen plenty of people who may have started out in something that was a little bit lower, and then they kind of re-educate themselves around what they want financially based on their life goals and what maybe has changed for them. And so this is a process. It's something that's going to change throughout your life. You'll constantly have to reevaluate. And I think having mentorship and getting used to talking about money can be a helpful start.
Work in Progress is a podcast by the UVA Career Center, the Virginia Audio Collective, and WTJU. I'm your host, Jessie, and my co-host is Kate. Work in Progress is produced by Mary Garner McGee. Our music is from Blue Dot Sessions. Follow the UVA Career Center on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check out our website at career.virginia.edu.